Let's go with breaking news. Look, if you're watching live, the headline is about to change because things are happening right now at this very moment. That's just how the news is, right? So yes, we're going to talk about what the original headline says, but the headline is changing because that's what the information requires. Let's discuss what's happening now. Because of a suspicious infiltration inside Israel, according to reports, right now an alert has been issued to the Israeli Defense Forces. The Israel Defense Forces says they've detected an infiltration in Israel. This would be coming from the border with Jordan, right where we are seeing. In Paran, the Israel Defense Forces launches a major operation after the entry of alleged infiltrators near the community of Paran, while the emergency alert sounds in the area. The Israel Defense Forces reported a suspected infiltration from Jordan, especially near the Israeli community of Paran, located in the south of the country near the Negev desert. The situation is critical and dynamic. The exact number of individuals who crossed the border has not yet been confirmed, but it is presumed that several suspects entered Israeli territory. What I'm mentioning is already being reported by the Times of Israel, though this information first circulated within the Israel Defense Forces. The troops are conducting thorough searches and blocking roads in all areas to locate the suspects. Based on Israel Defense Forces statements, while the operation continues, there is currently no direct security threat to civilians. So far, at least, there isn't one. This possible infiltration is happening at a time of high tension regarding Lebanon, Gaza, the West Bank, and obviously what's happening with Iran. I'll update you soon on what's happening with Iran as they're making moves now. Thank you, by the way, to those who have already liked the video, the report. Please help us share these news reports. Thanks to channel members and those offering extra support. Become a member or support us with a super chat. We really appreciate it. Check the description for ways to support the channel via Loxo, PayPal, or Super Chat. Thank you very much. They will report it. Meanwhile, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are also warning and hinting at war. Let's get into the details of what is known right now, but the Israeli-Jordanian border. Let's go to the map. Let's go to the map right away. Because in this area of Israel, as you already know, this area is between the border of Jordan and Israel. They not only have the entire border, basically on the east, reaching practically this part of Jordan all the way to the outlet to the Gulf, or rather to the Red Sea, which is this. But they also share an important border. Let's look at the map divided so it's clearer how Jordan is. So, at some point in the south, was this movement, this infiltration reported? We have to remember that people get into Jordan, groups suddenly come in that come from Iran. But they could be other groups, right? There are several groups there, radicals that can be dangerous. The Israeli-Jordanian border, although generally very stable, has been identified by intelligence as part of what is now being reported, an infiltration where it could also happen, because it has happened before, that weapons or militants from some radical group are transported. For example, this already happened after the conflict in October 2023. Also, the same area, the same people who live in the region are worried that something might be brewing, let's say, right? The population of the nearby communities is on alert, with warning messages circulating on social media and neighborhood groups. At this moment in Israel, the Israel Defense Forces, along with intelligence services like Shin Bet, are maintaining aerial and ground surveillance throughout the area and are expected to expand the operation. If they are suspects and they are not located, if they are not found in the next few hours, well, that would be more concerning, wouldn't it? The news is developing at this moment and, well, we will keep giving you details on how this situation is unfolding, but obviously it's a topic that keeps changing in real time. At the same time, there's also a situation that draws attention within Iran, right? As has been reported in the last few hours and very close to this region, let's now turn to Iran, right? In this part of the world, a very threatening report is also being made, already in a kind of pre-war mode, let's say. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps warns that it will consider neighboring countries hostile if they allow attacks against Iran from their territory. Well, you have to take this for granted. It's going to happen. Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar are countries where there are United States military personnel. Saudi Arabia has said that they don't want attacks from their territory against Iran. We'll see what Qatar says and we'll see what Iraq says. Only a few troops remain in Iraq, but recently there have been actions against pro-Iranian militias there. What about Mohammed al-Basaid, the naval political commander of the IRGC, Iran's Revolutionary Guard? They are the ones who, let's say, worship the Ayatollah, the supreme leader. They are, let's say, the supreme leader's army. They claim that any neighbor who allows the use of their land, the sky and waters will also be declared a threat, and as a hostile country, which they will also attack. That would be the red line that Iran is presenting today. Iran's warning comes right after the arrival of a group of American aircraft carriers in the area, raising the risk of direct confrontation with local countries. That's why this announcement is so concerning. That has just been made. By the way, the United States simultaneously announced that there will be a multi-day air military exercise across the entire Middle East at this time, which obviously reinforces the hypothesis that they are preparing for a move. The exercise is called a military readiness exercise. So it's very obvious that something is coming, at least that's the impression they want to give. Israel and Jordan are under scrutiny due to these reported infiltrations by unknown individuals or groups. It's unclear who they are or why they're crossing into Israel. Donald Trump declares that Iran is at its weakest point since 1979. Donald Trump, President of the United States, claims that Iran is about to collapse. Basically, if Trump threatens Khamenei, the Hezbollah leader says we must respond. I mentioned this here yesterday. So it's like everything is already set. Is it prepared for a conflict situation? At least that's what it seems. The international community is, well, following this issue, and at the same time, the publication about the Doomsday Clock, as it's called, has just come out, right? That's what the scientists called it. For many years now, year after year, once, twice, or even 3 times a year, the Doomsday Clock is updated. Let's discuss the situation in detail. Thanks for sharing the live streams on your social media. Make sure that the Doomsday Clock, which is this clock, says that it's 85 seconds to midnight. This is the closest this clock has ever been to an armed conflict or a nuclear risk, or let's say an existential risk for humanity. They say this is the nearest point. It was 89 seconds to midnight last year, by the way. 2.5, 89 seconds to midnight, June 29th. 2024. They warn that it's 85 seconds to the end of the world. That's what they call it in this report. The iconic Doomsday Clock marks its closest point to global catastrophe since 1947. That this warning from scientists exists today, well, this warning, let's say it's already a record. Let's say it's the biggest they've ever had. Now, it marks 85 seconds to midnight, the closest point to what they call the apocalypse since its creation in 1947 by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, as they call it. This is a symbol. More than that, it's a warning from the scientific community, saying, well, it's a metaphor, so to speak. It's a way to show what the current risk is for a complicated situation. They say that humanity is not only facing the risk of nuclear weapons, but also what's happening with the climate and with biotechnology that's out of control. It's a topic that's hardly ever discussed. In fact, it's not just that it's not discussed, I don't even think it's really understood. What is the risk of biotechnology for the future of humanity? I mean, it's something I don't even think most people consider. And people think about nuclear risks, they think about environmental risks from extreme climates, but the part about uncontrolled biotechnology or AI that's out of control or misused, nothing is being done or very little is being done, and this warning is also for them. There are four major challenges that basically put the planet at risk, or at least life itself. Nuclear issues, extreme climate issues, uncontrolled biotechnology, and misapplied AIs, those are the risks these scientists see. The trend has been getting worse since 2020 when we went from 100 seconds to midnight to 85 seconds. At this point, that's the symbol. The idea is that there are more and more risks and very little is being done. We're not moving away from midnight, we're getting closer to it. Basically, that's the message, right? From 2024 to 2025, the risk started to increase even more, and they say that the existential biotechnological risk is becoming broader and broader. Scientists warn that mirror bacteria are being created in laboratories, which could generate uncontrollable organisms capable of wiping out entire ecosystems on the planet. That's what it says. They're doing experiments that we aren't even aware of. We're talking about these mirror bacteria, which could be highly dangerous, right? Basically, not to mention other types of experiments, also with biotechnology. The decline in public health too. In the United States, declining healthcare infrastructure is seen as a dangerous trend that limits responses to biological threats. Also, according to the same bulletin, there is a policy that keeps getting worse or more polarized. And what if many leaders ignore or worsen the risks, not finishing climate policies or encouraging the use of fossil fuels? Also, among these warnings is the part, let's say, about the use of chairs in military applications. That also ensures it's a risk. They say that what the scientists propose is a dialogue. They ask that the United States and Russia talk more about nuclear risks. They also call for a halt to the creation of mirror life, control over military use in chairs, and real climate action that gradually eliminates fossil fuels. Well, those are some of the proposals made by these atomic scientists. 8 Nobel Prize winners are part of this group. They say this isn't fiction, it's simply a warning based on data, information, and evidence on what they are observing. That's just part of their report. Let's discuss other topics. Goodbye, just notice what a turning point this is. But there's a report from Lais, who they say is collaborating or will collaborate with the Olympic Games. Peacock Board. The mayor of Milan said he doesn't even want to see this person, the head of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, anywhere near him. The United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents will be present at the Milan Cortina Olympic Games, working with other United States security services under Italian authority, according to sources at United States embassies in Rome. But at the same time, they say from Italy that no, that's not true. So yeah, it's curious, honestly. Let's see who's right. Are they going to go or not? Are the Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents going to Italy? So will it happen or not? That's the big question right now. Let's see if this can be clarified later on, right? You also remember that terrible situation over in Guanajuato, where this weekend 11 people died and 2 were left injured after an attack by an armed group against people who were playing there. I think it was soccer. Well, now it's known that it was an attack between groups, between cartels. According to reports, the security forces have been patrolling the soccer field where that armed attack took place, in the community of Loma de Flores in Salamanca. This happened in the state of Guanajuato. According to witnesses, several armed men arrived in 2 trucks, got out, and fired indiscriminately at the players and spectators. It is known that there is a dispute between 2 rival groups. At least that's what the lines of investigation from the United States authorities say. From here, from Mexico, and I don't know if from the United States as well right now, with this supposed collaboration they're doing, right? At least 5 of the 11 deceased, 5 were part of a private security company linked to the Jalisco New Generation cartel. That's according to the same sources from Mexico's security cabinet. That's why it's believed this was one cartel attacking another. The shooting attack would have been carried out by the Maros, the armed wing of the Santa Rosa de Lima cartel, which is dedicated to drug distribution, homicides and extortion in the area, according to the same investigations. That's what happened on Sunday, remember? We talked about it then? Well, let's move on to another important matter. The Pentagon is making a move on the issue of disclosing unidentified flying objects. Documents reveal that the Department of Defense is organizing a meeting, but it's secret and selective, with some media outlets about UFOs, keeping most of the media out of access to this information that is going to be disclosed. The Pentagon organized a secret off-the-record meeting, away from cameras and everything, under the idea that more information about the unidentified flying object topic will be released again. It should be remembered that on March 6, 2024, there was talk about the phenomenon and a lot of information was released about the objects, about the UFOs, or these unidentified aerial phenomena in particular. There, Volume 1 of the Historical Record Report was presented, which was ordered, by the way, by the United States Congress. Right now, press invitations have been extremely restricted. Only hand-picked journalists are allowed to attend by invitation only, and the invitations are non-transferable. Invitation, strict conditions, and prior written acceptance. They must say yes, we'll go, but we don't know what will happen. The staff and Pentagon spokesperson Susan Grock said the meeting was unusual, meant only for finalizing plans, not for daily records. But then what's the point? Why do you make an invitation to just a small group of people? And that's it? Supposedly, everything was recorded but kept private, with no remote broadcasts or public access. Confirmed participants included reporters from the New York Times, cable news network Politico, Task and Purpose, and the Washington Post, such as Kyla Go, Jeff S., Google, and Lara Seligman. Despite the publication of the list, several names appear redacted under the B6 exemption, which also raises doubts about the identity of other attendees. So, there were some who didn't stay, they didn't want to comment, not everything was reported, not the whole group that was allowed in was reported. Does this raise more doubts that the narrative about UAPs and unidentified flying objects is still being manipulated? Unlike other Pentagon sessions where open listening is allowed, this was handled with the utmost confidentiality. Only those willing to follow the Pentagon's strict conditions were admitted, which could explain that they don't want certain unidentified anomalous phenomena narratives to get out of control. So to speak, the information... It's pretty strange. Disclosure is coming anyway, so we'll have to see what is addressed, but it's very striking that this is happening. It's not, let's say, so harsh in that information about what the upcoming disclosure will say. Well, we don't know. It hasn't happened yet, but this excessive control, this media blockade that was put in place is very striking. It was going to happen. By the way, this long-awaited report, which has been expected for about 6 or 7 months since the middle of last year, apparently this report is going to be released. Now, we'll see if it comes with interesting information, but all of this raises a lot of suspicions. A lot of suspicion, so to speak. Meanwhile, let's move on to other matters because the government of South Korea is calling an emergency meeting. Do you recall what Donald Trump announced yesterday? He's now planning to put tariffs on the Koreans too? Well, now the Koreans are confused, right? And, well, the Korean government is definitely reporting on it. South Korea held a meeting early today since President Donald Trump announced that tariffs on the country's products have increased, including vehicles, wood, and pharmaceuticals. If this measure goes through, it will raise tariffs from 15 to 25%. This announcement has caused a lot of discontent within South Korea and will surely have effects on different products, let's say. This movement is also being reported. Let's see if we can observe it here. This image that's circulating out there on Twitter. This individual, this penguin, the penguin that's there is a Russian soldier with this penguin-shaped coat. You can see it there, but let's say from an aerial view, it's not as noticeable. He's camouflaged, but he's protected so that not a single part of his skin is visible. And this makes it so that heat detections, basically heat sensors, can't detect them from the same drones. After these minutes, after these seconds, after discovering this Russian soldier was eliminated. This new uniform they're using, penguin style, really caught people's attention as they're trying to avoid being detected by drones with heat detection. Even so, well, what this post says and what it shows with very harsh, very graphic images, which we can no longer show, but it shows how, well, this uniform isn't that useful either. I mean, yes, they can see them even though, yes, they really aren't visible to thermal cameras. There we've seen how creativity in war has grown. The adaptations they make on both sides back and forth constantly. That also, well, this draws attention right now. Let's move on to other important topics. Look at what happened with this plane. There it is. Apparently it's a malfunction, a failure. I don't know if it's mechanical. The landing didn't lead to anything serious. A National Aeronautics and Space Administration plane, which apparently had a mechanical problem, didn't have to land. Without. Unable to lower the bottom part. What are the wheels called? The point is that it had a mechanical problem. It landed without the landing gear. I won't read this to you. At Ellington Field in Houston, nothing serious happened. It was just a scare. The landing was very, very smooth, as you can see, and everyone was already on alert so that this plane wouldn't catch fire. Let's also move on to other important matters happening around the world. First of all, let me tell you that this situation with Israel is going to keep changing. I think we'll see more things as time goes on. But in the meantime, they introduced this little robot, a robot that's pretty expensive, about $50,000 if I'm not mistaken. The cost of Sprout is a humanoid that's 3.5 feet tall, and it's sold for that amount. Are the people who made this little robot engineers or former engineers from Meta and Google with the idea that it would be a super safe humanoid? Specifically built for safety and to help in hotels, offices, at home, and as entertainment. It's a robot that, well, according to what they say, is made for that purpose, not for anything else. I mean, it's almost impossible for it to harm a person, a child, and so on. It's not made with that in mind, not with the idea that it won't harm anyone, because in the end it's a risk. It's still a robot that can fail and can be a risk in some of its functions. Sprout, in theory, isn't like that. It's designed to be very safe. Well, more and more are coming out, and it's super expensive. I mean, like $50,000. So yeah, that's definitely out of budget. It's not good. For many, maybe, for some, maybe they could afford something like that. It's called Sprout, a humanoid about 3.5 feet tall, around 1 to 1.1 meters. How much is it? How much is a meter? Let's see. It's 1.1 meters, 1 meter, 1 meter, 1 meter. Well, that's how tall this little robot is. Let's move on to other important matters as well. Important matters. Look, the CIA is about to establish a permanent presence now. According to these reports in United States media, the CIA is working to establish a permanent presence in Venezuela. pay attention to that issue, as several things stand out about recent events in Venezuela. According to what is known right now and what has been spreading in these last few hours, it's that the CIA would already be looking to have a solid presence, not just a permanent one, they say. Well, this draws attention, especially considering that there are countries that aren't very happy with the whole situation in Venezuela, for example, Russia and China themselves, who didn't look favorably on this situation. The CIA says it is discreetly operating in Venezuela to establish a permanent presence. The information matches a strategy of diplomatic and operational re-entry after the capture of Maduro himself at the beginning of January 3rd. To be exact, not even a single month has passed. And well, the director of the CIA would have been the first high-ranking official from the Trump administration to visit Venezuela. It's symbolic that CIA Director John Radcliffe is the first high-ranking official to go there. That says a lot, doesn't it? According to Cable News Network, the roadmap was defined between the CIA and the State Department, and it states that the intelligence agency will take the lead in the process, given the fragile situation in that country. In the short term, they plan to operate from the CIA annex, which allows them to establish communication channels. Not diplomats, even with current government, opposition, and key Venezuelan intelligence members. According to what this anonymous source familiar with the plan reports, he stated that before the diplomatic channels are ready, the annex can help establish conversations that diplomats cannot have, highlighting a key intelligence role. The CIA has reportedly had an operational team in Venezuela since last August, closely monitoring Maduro's movements, including, according to the anonymous source, that's the situation. By the way, notice that there's already a reaction to what I was telling you about this idea that supposedly Immigration and Customs Enforcement is going to move to Milan. Well, Milan rejects Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Pepe Sala, the mayor of Milan, declared that agents from Immigration and Customs Enforcement of the United States are not welcome during the Winter Olympics being held in Milan. The statements were reportedly made after the announcement from this kind of agency and militia saying, well, no, we can't let them enter the country, they can't come in, according to this same report. Meanwhile, the Italian Minister of the Interior, Matteo Piatodesi, is trying to downplay the issue, assuring that Immigration and Customs Enforcement will not be carrying out immigration tasks. The agency explained that the agents will only assist with the diplomatic security of the United States and will be under Italian authority. He assures they won't conduct any immigration operations, at least according to current statements about the Winter Olympics. Meanwhile, there are reports of suspected censorship on TikTok. Users are accusing the Immigration and Customs Enforcement app of blocking videos against Immigration and Customs Enforcement. If someone criticizes Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the video is either censored or gets no views. According to reports, several public figures, including the comedian Megan Stalter, have reported that their videos criticizing Immigration and Customs Enforcement, due to what happened with Alex Pettit, they couldn't. They weren't even allowed to publish them. A complaint of censorship is being made, and now TikTok has been taken over by the United States. Keep in mind, that's over there, it applies over there. They claim that they've been noticing that certain topics are completely censored, that the app doesn't even allow them to upload them. TikTok says it's technical issues, but what people say is that if you uploaded something else, it would upload perfectly, but if you uploaded a topic against them, it couldn't be uploaded. I mean, it was very obvious that something was going on, that a topic was being controlled, so we also have to stay alert. Let's move on to other important matters. In Iran's currency, the rial drops even further. 1.5 million rials for $1, the lowest in history. I mean, it's really tough. As far as we know, the rial had its biggest drop. Well, the thing is, the economic problems will continue as long as the regime stays there. People just don't want to. Who would want to invest? Right now in Iran, the people themselves don't want that regime either. They want the regime to be completely gone, and the country is practically paralyzed. I mean, there are certain things that work, but obviously the most important things are paralyzed. There's no investment, and there won't be any investment until there's some kind of change in that regard. Meanwhile, another issue that stands out today is the mothers of political prisoners. Over there in Venezuela, they remain outside, they keep protesting. There have been these images where you can see, well, the mothers in a sort of field, so to speak, where they are obviously protesting and very upset with the whole situation. This camp, let's say. Among the participants is the mother of Reyes Flores, a politician who joined the protest. Because according to what the Notice B agency said, she believes she should support those warrior women. I mean, even people who had already left, well, their families went there. And obviously, even though there is repression or attempted repression, it can't be that visible either. Because the relationship with the United States is broken. The Minister of the Interior himself, Rosado Cabello, stated that there have been 808 releases of former prisoners who have been taken out of jail. Something that human rights organizations say is completely false. Supposedly, Trump announced the day they told him that all the releases are about to happen. They're about to release everyone who's in jail there in Venezuela. All the political prisoners are going to be released. I mean, it's about to happen. It's going to happen soon, we'll see. Because there are several prisons, right? There are several prisons where people are being held. The Penal Forum, this organization, confirmed it. They have been able to. They have recorded 266 people who have actually been released from January 8th until yesterday. 266 people who have been confirmed out of the more than 1,000 they have there. Well, that's tremendous. Let's move on to other matters, other important topics as well, like the state. Greetings, Jose, all the way to the north of Spain. Tocayo, very good. Edilson, how are you, Eliseo? Welcome to everyone joining the community, and thank you. Please give us a thumbs up, and let's move on to other interesting topics. Notice that North Korea has reportedly launched again these missiles, one missile, two ballistic missiles into the Sea of Japan. This happened after a high-ranking United States official visited Seoul. Let's get into the details, but the thing is, this issue doesn't end with these actions. And North Korea, well, is sending a clear message that it doesn't approve of these visits to the region. For them, it's a risk, according to them, right? North Korea launched two ballistic missiles after the key visit from the United States to South Korea. They were reportedly launched today, Tuesday, January 27th, 2026. At least two ballistic missiles fell into the Sea of Japan, confirmed by authorities in both Japan and South Korea. This action follows the visit of Albridge Colby, United States Deputy Secretary of Defense, who called South Korea a model ally. Amid growing military alliances in the region, this is North Korea's second weapons test so far this month. North Korea began 2026 intensely. After a series of tests aimed at challenging Washington and Seoul, possibly since they're also testing weapons, because this new weaponry isn't usually or something like that, they're always up to something. Now, reports from the Japanese Ministry of Defense say the missiles landed outside Japan's exclusive economic zone, but they do pose a risk to any ship that might be in the area. The South Korean Joint Chiefs of Staff also confirmed the launch, describing multiple ballistic missiles aimed toward the East Sea, as it is called by Seoul. Analysts agree that these tests are meant to show strength. And at the same time, we have to remember that recently there have been internal movements in North Korea. For example, they removed one of the highest ranking officials, one of Kim Jong-un's closest people. They removed him. So, there are also some internal things happening, and it could be part of this show of force to the outside, but also to show it internally. There has been no progress in denuclearization. There has been no progress in any kind of improvement in the relationship between the Koreas. Donald Trump has tried reaching out, like suggesting another meeting with Kim Jong-un, but they aren't interested, right? Yang Moon-jin, an expert on North Korea, pointed out that these launches also aim to increase regional attention and consolidate internal discipline. It's not just what I'm saying, it's also an internal issue, but another matter is also noteworthy. Right now, there are activists accusing the Iranian regime, which doesn't surprise me either. Will you see the accusation? They're accusing the Iranian regime of the protesters they have detained there. They record videos of them and make them confess to things that aren't true, right? So later they can show these recordings to the world and claim, look, they're admitting they're foreign spies and so on. That's all there is. Activists are reporting that the Ayatollah's regime is forcing detained protesters to make false confessions. This was already on Iranian television. Many of them are under physical or psychological torture. The human rights activist news agency has documented at least 240 forced televised confessions just in the last 2 weeks. Hopefully. Sometimes it ranges from 30,000 to 50,000. Some figures in but animated blood. I perfected myself in it. Meanwhile, notice that in India, new missiles are being presented, hypersonic missiles. By the way, let's look at the image, which is really surprising and shows how the Indians are doing. They are making progress in many areas that might surprise us at some point. This image was published. This image, according to what they show, I mean, within all this activity that has been going on, this pattern, let's see if we can put it here, is an image they're sending. Hypersonic missiles, in which India presents its first hypersonic and ship-destroying missile. According to reports, India would be debuting this missile. Let me see if I can put it here. They would be demonstrating, according to what they say. Well, it's the first time they've managed to have a mass-produced hypersonic missile that's specialized in destroying ships, according to reports. I'll tell you about it because it's important. I mean, besides being a nuclear country, they're showing more and more strength in that regard. Besides, it's a missile that, according to them, is long range. It's a missile that they say is specialized to destroy ships of any kind. India would have achieved a milestone that many said was impossible in 2024. They showed the image of this, of this missile. In 2024, they showed it and said they were going to start producing it. Well, now, according to what they say, not only did they test it, but they're also building it on a massive scale. I mean, in 2024. That was the announcement that it had been achieved. Now, supposedly, it's already being built on a massive scale, according to what they say. So, well, let's see if that's true, says India, which, well, is... This consolidates its position when it comes to hypersonic missiles. Here it is. Now the little missile would supposedly be this one. This would be the missile. I'd need to see it in action. Let's see if they show it. No, so far I haven't seen any videos of this, no, but it would be interesting to know how many times the speed of sound, because there's already some data, right, about what the drug traffickers, China and the United States have done, right? Because it's taken the Russians a while to develop them, and some countries have done it faster. I mean, it hasn't been that easy. But anyway, let's move on to other matters, other important topics as well. Check out this very curious case of this individual. Look at this individual right here. Last month, this congressman named Kevin Hearn sold $500,000 worth of stocks. United Health. Yes, last month, and now the Trump administration has proposed fixed Medicare reimbursement rates for insurers. And what did this cause? The company's stock dropped. So, does that mean this congressman knew what was going to happen? Because, well, now you just don't trust anything, right? Even until now. I mean, that he sold these shares a month before, and then this announcement comes out that sends the value of these insurance companies' stocks plummeting. Well, I don't know. It should be investigated, right? Since when did they know this move was going to happen? That it was going to directly affect this company? No, this is something that's illegal. That's considered illegal. So obviously, well, it will have to be investigated, right? Let's move on to other important matters. What we're seeing here is historic. Yes, what we're seeing here, there's von der Leyen, and there's the Prime Minister of India, right? What we're seeing here is historic. And well, in the end, this was to be expected. It was coming. And Donald Trump and the United States have made decisions that damage relations with Europe. These moves and this union mark a historic agreement between the European Union and India. Look, in the coming years, this is going to be a very interesting point to balance. What Europe urgently needs right now is to have relationships with democratic countries that can balance its economy and its future security relations. Because the United States is no longer reliable for them, especially after Greenland and the tariffs. India has a lot of potential for the future, but it still doesn't have that much wealth. It's still a poor country, although it has impressive development potential. Brussels or the European Union and India just made a trade and security pact that's going to affect more or less. Europe and India together have 2 billion people. On the positive side, we can expect a reduction in tariffs on agriculture and defense. While the United States imposes tariffs on Europe, Europe persuades other countries to drop tariffs, causing business to boom. So, suddenly when India starts to prosper, which everything indicates it will, you're going to have a market where European car brands, for example, will be repositioned. Damn, how many cars are going to be sold? Well, damn, not that many, but in the coming years they could potentially sell a lot. The free trade zone is going to create one of the largest free trade areas on the planet, benefiting more than 2,000 citizens in total. India will gradually reduce the extremely high tariffs, because right now the tariff was already at 110%, but they will go down to just 10%. They will be reduced little by little. Manufacturers like BMW, Renault, Audi, Volkswagen and others will be selling massively. Tariff cuts on machinery at 44% will also be eliminated. Chemical products will be greatly reduced as well, and pharmaceuticals will also be reduced significantly, so there will be industrial sectors that benefit a lot from all this movement. Agricultural access will also be unprecedented. European farmers will be able to sell to India, and well, India will. They also need to have many sources of food, not just the ones they produce themselves, but to have more sources of food and cheap food. Removing tariffs ultimately lowers food costs. If it comes from Europe, will Europeans be able to sell lots of cars, food and other products? European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said this agreement will transform bilateral relations. We won't see this right away. It will take decades to appear. But I insist while Trump keeps fighting. Right now, China has gotten really involved with Europe. It's selling a lot, even though Europe has put a stop to many Chinese things on many issues. So it has opened up and that trade is growing a lot. be careful with that issue. It's true Europe isn't the same as before, right? They used to represent 30% of the world's gross domestic product. Now they're around 15 or 16. I mean Europe. Europe is, well, very small compared to what it used to be, right? But, well, with those movements, maybe in the future, Europe could start to change, right? Meanwhile, look at what's happening with China. China is making moves here, on this side. It has assured that it will be committing to give support and assistance to Cuba, for example, and this Tuesday it did not commit to providing support and assistance to Cuba. Yesterday it was announced that Mexico also won't send oil. Mexico says that it was a decision made here by us, that no one pressured us, that this was a sovereign decision by Pemex, and that it wasn't because of pressure from the United States. Supposedly not. Well, the thing is that China came out in defense of Cuba. Another notable point is that as gaps emerge, China and other countries quickly capitalize on them. In this case, China bought or rather obtained permission to get involved with gold mining in Nicaragua. A company sanctioned by the United States has transferred a mining concession in Nicaragua to a Chinese firm, amid financial restrictions on Daniel Ortega's regime. According to Compañía Minera Internacional, a company sanctioned by the United States Treasury Department. An open-pit mining concession of 4,000 out of 4,131 hectares was granted to the Chinese firm Thomas Metal, the Nicaraguan government reported. Well, there you have it, right? That's Nicaragua strengthening its relationship with China in the mining sector, and well, that's how things are. On that matter, let's move on to other important topics as well. Well, here is also this comment made by Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, regarding the Holocaust. Let's listen.
As we know, the Holocaust is a stark demonstration of the dangers of unchecked hatred,
says the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, on the day of Holocaust remembrance. The Holocaust did not begin with killings, it began with words. No, like saying, well, they start with these ideologies of supremacy. They don't start with ideologies of supremacy, of I am better than you, I am above you, I am superior, etc. They start with that kind of thing and those words, right? At the end of the day, those hateful comments, for example, towards certain social groups, not all comments eventually end in violence, right? That's the message that Guterres gives in this situation. January 27 is the International Day of Commemoration for Holocaust Victims. Every January 27th we remember, well, the millions of people who were victims of the Nazi regime, not only the Jews during the Holocaust, but also the victims, millions of people who were affected by that Nazi regime. No, so it was established at the United Nations, this commemoration on the 27th that's been around for a long time, so every January 27th it is observed. And in that sense, I mean, yes, there's a point there, right? Hate and words of hate always end up turning into violence. You start to see acts like what happens with immigration and customs enforcement with the population, not just with migrants anymore, which is already terrible that they treat migrants that way, but even with United States citizens, right? But that's how it starts, with small things, with little words, and then it evolves into a terrible polarization. Let's hope it doesn't reach the levels of those times. But in the meantime, notice that they also do a study on this individual, on this person's brain. Let's see if you remember him. We recently talked about him. He's Alex Honnold, do you remember? He climbed without any protection. He climbed the Taipei 101 building, one of the most important buildings in Taiwan. Well, I think it was even broadcast on Netflix, right? He climbed. It's a key building in Taiwan, and this achievement was shown on Netflix. And well, obviously this moment, this event went around the world, right? The truth is that they did a study on this person's brain, right? According to what they report in this study, let's say the neurological study on this person, about Honnold, it revealed that his amygdala, the fear center in the brain, barely activates. I mean, they compared his brain with others, for example, extreme athletes and their differences, and that's with athletes who do extreme sports. I mean, they compared him with other athletes who are used to danger, right? And even comparing him with them, where there should be activity because of fear of what he's doing, he doesn't have it. I mean, this isn't active for him. I don't know if you've seen the image when he stands on the edge of the building, and it looks impressive, right? The height and all of that in just a little spot, right? And he stands there like it's nothing, like he's just standing in his living room. Yeah, it's crazy. It's incredible. According to the neurological study, his amygdala, the brain's fear center, barely activates. He was compared to other extreme athletes and his difference was radical. Researchers James Paul and Jen Joseph conducted magnetic resonance imaging tests, and this was already several years ago. And they concluded that Arnold's emotional reaction is tremendous because it's practically non-existent. It's as if fear doesn't exist within him. Neuroscience suggests that his disconnection from fear may be due to a predisposition, as well as years of mental training. I mean, years of extreme mental training in high-risk situations. And in the end, well, that area becomes kind of numb, so to speak, he says. It could be that it's natural, or maybe he just trained it. Well, who knows, right? But the point is that, I mean, you can see it graphically in a brain like his. The lack of fear. All right, let's go to the comments. Bitwitch says the problem with Europe is that Trump has spent his time fighting with it and as a result has gotten involved. Or does it have to look for solutions so it doesn't depend on someone who isn't trustworthy? I think so. I totally agree. I mean, it's not that the relationship between the United States and Europe is going to end, but yes. Well, they've already realized that they can't depend too much on a single partner. They'll have to have more partners. He says, Europeans pay very high taxes and follow illogical rules just to produce and sell. Now anyone from outside can sell freely without health controls, he says. I agree, that needs to change. It can't go on like this. Regulations are necessary, but they shouldn't be so excessive that production becomes impossible. I mean, and in the meantime, you have to buy from outside because you don't have the possibility to produce well and cheaply, right? The balance isn't there yet, and it's tough now. Greetings, how have you been? He asks while exploiting the country's resources. Wherever they go, they can't take them along. Greetings from Nicaragua. Blessings, Carmen. It's great to see you. And it's possible, right? I mean, taking away, well, the great value that the people of Nicaragua have there, right? When people said they don't go to Nicaragua because there's nothing there, I thought, what do you mean? Nicaragua has plenty of resources like gold and more. And besides their population, right? Which also, well, so now what? What do you think the Nicaraguan regime is thinking about what's happening, about what's pointing toward Cuba? Could it be that from there they're going to Nicaragua? Or maybe they're not. Maybe nothing will happen there. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, says Delicia. How are you? Greetings. Aurelio says that one day the robot rebellion will reach Panama. He says, what I don't like is hearing news from the mouth of a robot, says Aurelio. Yeah, me neither. I mean, you're right. I mean, suddenly they start replacing people. No, hopefully not us, but you're right. Or suddenly they use those non-digital bots and start making a bunch of videos, right? In theory, some platforms want to regulate this so that we remain human. Those of us who can be here communicating and those of us who can be here talking and everything. But there's always the temptation, right? To use these kinds of things, isn't there? That's why I think it's so important to show your face, to show up here. Even if you're not good looking, it doesn't matter, right? But you come out here and it's you, right? Because once you cover your face, you run the risk that, well, that suddenly you might be irresponsible. Not when giving information, since no one knows who I am and they just say anything. There aren't many people who give reports and never want to show themselves. For me, if it's just tutorials, it doesn't matter, but if it's about news topics, it does. You have to show your face. You always have to show your face, because if not, then who's giving me the information, right? How can I trust you if you don't even show your face? That's the main issue, among others. Mexico is one of several places like this around the world. No, I don't think there is, especially with companies now. All the more reason to show your face, but that's just how it is. Who says it's necessary? Engineer from Iran and 3 permits just to drive in a nail. And with all that, what happened, what am I going through? There, he says it's like his state. Greetings to the whole community, thank you very much, he says there is. Thank you very much, says Sol Garcia. Politicians aren't afraid either. I mean, maybe I should be a politician, right? But if it's like that, then yes, they are afraid. Because you can see how do you say it? How they look out for each other, how they protect each other. I mean, they're crafty, right? They just don't have the sensitivity of ethics. I don't know, he says. Eventually, there will be an economic reset, shifting to a gold-backed monetary system. Imagine, Beto, if that happened, at least things would balance out. I don't think we'll switch to one or the other outside, right? I don't think you'd be that blunt, but I do think there will be balance, not greater balance. I mean, there's distrust right now. There's no distrust between the fiats. No, I mean between the currencies. Not just from the people, but also from the central banks themselves. They don't trust their currencies, so they consider buying more gold, platinum, and silver. No, I don't know if all central banks are doing it, but it's increased a lot in recent years. Hey, we'll be back in a little while with more information, with another update. We'll see how things are developing in Israel. We don't know what kind of infiltration they're talking about, because there isn't any right now. They didn't even know what it was about. They just detected a group entering through Jordan. Julio Benavides, how's it going? He says. He says politicians won't back fiat with gold because it would hurt their business. Greetings, Julio, to Liceo, to the whole community. Hope you're all well. See you later. Take care. Until then, greetings.